Hello everyone, today I'll be talking about extracting collocations in Arabic. So let me give you a quick overview before talking about anything else. So I will begin with a proposed definition for collocation from the perspective of this research, of course, and the role of false friends in this process. Then I will explain the steps taken towards the extraction of the target pattern of word combinations. I will also highlight the relationship between the association measures and the common collocational dimensions used to identify collocations. After that, I will compare the performance of 4 association measures with particular focus on log dice and log likelihood scores. Collocation as a notion has been defined in many different ways and from different perspectives. To fit within the adopted theoretical framework of my thesis, which amalgamates both phraseological and statistical approaches, I will define collocation as the tendency of conventionalized lexical items to significantly and exclusively reappear in the company of each other within specific grammatical patterns at a specified proximity in a given corpus. What I mean by lexical items in this definition is mainly the node and the collocate, since we are interested in extracting bigrams. So the node is the word of interest for which we look for candidate collocates, and collocates are the words that surround the node. The highlighted expressions here represent the key defining aspects of collocational relationship that we are going to use in the process of extracting the needed collocations. Just to clarify more about a node and a collocate, the word tawajjuhat in the given example was used as a node of search, and the adjectives سياسية, مختلفة, جديدة, and معينة were the top scoring collocates for this node, resulting in adjective plus noun collocations, which are the grammatical pattern of interest in this study. The nodes used in this research or in this task are synonymous words in Arabic to English false friends with French. So just as a quick definition for false friends, they are a pair of words that have similar, if not identical in some cases, spelling with different senses in 2 or more languages. And they are of 2 categories. The first category includes pairs of words that are orthographically and sometimes phonetically similar, but semantically completely divergent. So they are considered as homonyms in the context of 2 or more languages. As an example for this category is the pair eventual and éventuel and actual in French and English. The second category comprises words with different meanings in different languages again, but some of their meanings may coincide. As an example of that is the word or the pair interference and interférence in French. The chosen list of the nodes used here was obtained from a previously compiled list of false friends between English and French, and this list is composed of 360 pairs. In this task, we're going to use only 10 false friends, and we're going to use their translations in Arabic as nodes of search to construct adjective plus noun collocations. As far as situating this experiment with my PhD project, it is part of an ongoing research which aims at investigating French interference in Algerian students' English-Arabic and Arabic-English translations of adjective plus noun collocations. So the list of Arabic collocations generated from this task was used along with another list of English collocations, which I'm not going to go into in more details in this talk. So both lists served as a translation test for translation major students in Algeria. For extracting collocations, I used the Sketch Engine interface and one of the largest modern standard Arabic corpora available on it, which is the Arabic Web 2012 R1010. So this corpus has more than 7 billion words, which makes it representative And we're going to use a collocational window of one word on the left side of the node. The nodes, as I said before, are synonymous Arabic words to English and French false friends. And the candidates looked for are adjectives, as the main aim is to have adjective plus noun collocations. We used 4 different association measures, and they are the most popular association measures. The t-score, the MI, log likelihood, and log dice. And we're going to focus more on the scores of log likelihood and log dice. That's why we sort the 2 lists using the scores of these last 2 association measures. To understand more how the association measures function, we need to highlight which collocational aspects of the co-occurrence relationship we are interested in. In other words, which collocational dimensions we are considering. There are several dimensions for collocability, and the most common of which, and which are of interest in our research, are exclusivity and frequency. Frequency is one of the criteria that is crucial for the operationalization of identification and defining collocability of collocations. It is a dimension that is based on the idea that the more frequent the collocation is, the more predictable in language it becomes. Of course, given that corpora are representative of language. The second dimension is exclusivity, and this stresses the positive relationship between the occurrence of each unit separately in the corpus and the extent to which they co-occur together most of the time. So this is referred to as degree of exclusivity and also as mutual information. So exclusivity is typically measured by the number of times each unit in a bigram appears on its own in the corpus compared with the number of their co-occurrences together. So therefore, the more 2 units co-occur together, the stronger their exclusivity becomes. Association measures are statistical procedures or equations that calculate the strength among nodes and their collocates based on different aspects of co-occurrence relationship or based on different collocational dimensions. So there are dozens of statistical measures, and each of them generates a slightly different list of collocates. In practice, there is no association measure that covers all the collocational dimensions and fits all research questions due to the very different nature of these dimensions. The 4 association measures of interest in this study are the t-score, the MI, log likelihood, and log dice, and each of them has its own story. So let's begin with the t-score. Generally, when 2 constituent words are frequently occurring separately in a corpus, we would expect that their co-occurrence is random and just by chance. And assessing whether or not something is a chance event is one of the classical problems of statistics, for which hypothesis testing is used. So this is done through formulating a hypothesis which says that there is no association between the node and its collocate beyond chance, and compute the probability P that this hypothesis is true. Then reject it if the p-value is too low, and typically if it is less than a significance level of 0.05. Assuming the random distribution model for language, the t-test in its equation looks at the difference between the observed and the expected frequency scaled by the observed value. The t-score expresses the certainty with which we can argue that there is an association between the words. And its value is affected directly by the frequency of the whole collocation, which is why very frequent word combinations tend to reach a high t-score value. even if they are not true collocations. The second measure is log likelihood ratio, and log likelihood is like the t-score. It is a test of significance as well. So this measure is based on a ratio of two likelihood functions which correspond to two hypotheses. And the first hypothesis formalizes the independence of one word occurrence against the other word occurrence. So the node doesn't necessarily co-occur with the candidate collocate. And for the second hypothesis, it stipulates that the co-occurrences of both words are dependent on each other. And like the t-test, which assumes a normal distribution of the language, log likelihood assumes a binomial distribution, which is more plausible, and its score tells us how much more likely one of these hypotheses is than the other. The third association measure is the MI, and this measure is called the association of strength, as it measures the dependence of the collocation units through knowing how much information each of the unit provides about the other. So if one of them is entirely independent of the other, so that will ultimately demonstrate no shared information between the two words. The MI, therefore, is not a frequency-based measure like the t-score and log likelihood, and for this reason, it favors low-frequency collocations, and its scores result in assigning high scores to rare exclusive combinations, sometimes like technical terms or names. Although mutual information is standardized and comparable across corpora, the scale with which it works doesn't set either a theoretical maximum or a minimum value, and this requires more attention when interpreting high scores, as this doesn't mean necessarily that the collocation is stronger. The fourth association is log dice, which is a modified version of dice equation, in which the ratio of co-occurrence to the sum of each word occurrences separately is always very small. So unlike other association measures, the log dice equation has a fixed maximum value of 14, as the equation shows, and because of this, we can properly interpret the given scores. Also, we notice that the log dice equation doesn't have expected frequency in its equation. And this is mainly because log dice does not assume the normal distribution model that the t-score assumes, and it doesn't as well assume the binomial distribution that log likelihood assumes. So if positing the four associations of interest to us along a continuum with exclusivity and frequency at the opposing poles, we would have the mutual information at the far end of the exclusive continuum and the t-score at the end of the frequent pole combinations. Apart from exclusivity and frequency, which are directly related to association measures, we've got other collocational dimensions like dispersion, which refers to how evenly the words are distributed across the different texts and documents of the corpus. We've got also the distance, and this refers to the proximity of collocates from the node, and in this task we're going to use a span or a window of one word to the left, because we are interested in highlighting adjective plus noun. So the adjective would occur immediately after the noun. Also, we've got directionality, and this stems from the idea that components of a collocation do not attract each other with equal strength. So the degree of predictability within one collocation varies from one component to another. As an example for this, we've got the word عقوق, which automatically brings to mind الوالدين more than the word الوالدين does with عقوق. So for this particular kind of combinations, there is a specific association measure that is used to highlight these collocations, which is called delta P. Since we are interested just in frequency and exclusivity, we're going to use the corresponding association measures for these two dimensions only. Looking for an adjectival collocate which is both significantly frequent and exclusive for the node خداع, we highlighted the top 10 scoring candidate collocates sorted by log dice and log likelihood. So the first thing we notice in this example is that the list sorted by log dice does not include any function words. The second list, or the list sorted by log likelihood, shows that function words are assigned high scores by both log likelihood and t-score. However, these function words are assigned very low scores by mutual information, and they are even given negative values by log dice. Also, if we look at all the instances, we notice that the scores of t-score and log likelihood ratio to some extent are directly proportional, and the same applies to mutual information and log dice scores. In some other cases, also we can see that the scores of mutual information highlight some technical terms and names which log dice doesn't do. Looking at both lists, we can say that the best adjective collocate for خداع is basari because it occurred in both lists and was ranked first by log dice and fourth by log likelihood. So that's why it was the chosen adjective. Repeating the same process for the 10 nodes resulted in the following list of adjective plus noun collocations along with their ranks by log likelihood and log dice. To determine the efficiency of ranking of both significantly frequent and exclusive collocations by these two association measures, we calculate the average rank for the chosen collocates. And we found that the average rank of log dice was 2, and the average rank of log likelihood was 5. And this proves that log dice was more efficient in ranking significantly frequent and exclusive collocations at the same time. This brings me pretty much to the end of this talk, so let me just recap some important points. So log dice and mutual information seem to share the same approach, which is exclusivity, and log likelihood and t-score follow the same approach of frequency. Log dice compensates for the bias of low frequency because it doesn't highlight name entities or technical terms, which the MI does, and it can be regarded as the best association measure for exclusivity. Log dice and log likelihood can agree in practice, although they apply different, or they highlight different collocational dimensions. So log dice highlights exclusivity and log likelihood is more interested in highlighting significantly frequent. The precision of log dice outperforms that of log likelihood, as the former performs effectively even in on raw data or raw corpora, and that's why log likelihood highlights some punctuation, which is the thing that log dice doesn't do. And also, log dice is more efficient in ranking true collocations or significantly frequent and exclusive collocations. These are my references, and that's the end of this talk. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention, and I welcome any feedback or any questions that you might have. So please don't hesitate to get in touch.